Hi, everyone. I want to talk today about guaranteed jobs, a way to increase the wages here in the United States. Right now, we have wage stagnation, which means our wages are not going up to match the cost of living, which is causing a lot of issues in our society. And so, the Guaranteed Jobs program is a program that, it's been researched, and they found that it can be very, very successful in getting people off of welfare, as well as stimulating the economy and you know, just cleaning up society in general. So a few things with the guaranteed jobs is, what is it, right? So the guaranteed jobs is like, if you can't find a job, then the government gives you a job. So okay, so what does it mean that you can't find a job? It means that there's a period of time that you would have to qualify to get the guaranteed jobs. Okay, so the guaranteed jobs would be something that maybe you'd have to be unemployed and prove that you're working for 6 months or longer, or that you've been on welfare 6 months or longer, and then something like that you've lived here, you've been looking for work, you can't find a job for 6 months or longer. And the time period is something that I just kind of there's a lot of different criteria for how you would be qualified to get a guaranteed job. And so then what would you get as a guaranteed job? Well, it would be a not an employer-based guaranteed job. It would be something that would be serving society in some way. And maybe it would be, some way that the government could kind of offset it with some income, but in any case, so you would maybe be working on cleaning up graffiti, but you would always be making minimum wage. So the minimum wage would be set, and then you could not make more than that on a guaranteed job, right? So then the guaranteed job would be like you'd be doing whatever the government told you to do. And it would be something that you could, after you get to the end of 6 months, you can opt in, so the government would say, okay, you're qualified for a guaranteed job. Would you like it? And they have found that when they do these programs, I think it's about, I don't know, I think it's roughly the majority of people would rather have a guaranteed job than be unemployed and get the same amount of money, which is kind of shocking, right? They get the same amount of money, yet they'd rather work. So why would people rather work and get the same amount of money? Well, there's a few reasons. If these people are forward thinking, what they're thinking is that I haven't been able to get a job because I don't have a job, right? Sometimes to get a job, you have to have a job. That's kind of the criteria in America. So it's kind of a difficult situation that once people have been unemployed for 6 months, they can't get a job, because you can't get a job if you don't have a job. That's what employers are looking for, is they're looking for people who already have a job. So if people were to opt into the thing, they would do it just because they wanted to have a job in order to get a job, right? So they didn't really want to work for minimum wage, but they wanted a job. Number two, they get references. So if you work at a government job, you're going to get references. Also, you're going to get experience, right? You're going to get a lot of things. And so even though it's more expensive actually to work than to stay home, because now they're going to have to pack a lunch, now they're going to have to drive to the job, now they're going to have to maybe figure out how to get daycare. But a lot of people will opt in to this program just from research. They've done a few pilot studies. It's generally discontinued. People think, oh, it's expensive. But the thing is that what they've shown in these programs is that most of the times people phase out of this within 6 months. So if they couldn't find a job for 6 months, then they opt into this program where they have a guaranteed job. They get work experience, they get some references, and then actually people opt out of it, as in they get offered a better job that makes more than minimum wage within 6 months. So yes, it can be more expensive to employ people than to just send them money. But if you think long term, then that means that you're getting people off of welfare. And when people are off of welfare, what happens is that they commit less crimes and they feel better about themselves. It's a key indicator of happiness, is when we feel that we're a benefit to ourselves. So they feel better about themselves, so they're committing less crime, they have hope for the future, and so they're committing less crime. So the overall effect is that it saves the city a lot of money. But it's hard to get passed by legislature, because once you hire somebody, you have to figure out what they're going to do for the job. You're going to have a supervisor, you're going to have to do these other expenses, and that's true. But overall, it gets people off of welfare, and it lowers the crime rates. Another thing that it will happen, though, is that employers will often fight against a program like this, because if people have a guaranteed job that they can work for minimum wage for the federal or state government, what happens is that employers then cannot employ people for really horrible jobs. So people are like, well, if I won't have to work for minimum wage um, if I just opt into this government job. So then employers will have to pay their employees more money, which is why employers will tend to fight against these programs because they don't want to pay their employees more. So, but it would, the end effect of a guaranteed jobs program would be that people would make more money because then labor, there would be fewer people that would be desperate for working horrible jobs. And so, yeah, so it would reduce crime, it reduce welfare costs, it would, increase the wages for, especially for the people at the bottom end of the wage pool. But it keeps losing its momentum in our system. And so, yeah, it's really too bad. I really do believe that this would solve so many of our problems in our society to have a guaranteed jobs program. Um, all right, that's my thoughts about that. Thanks. Have a great day.